At 11:17 p.m. on November 25th, 2022, Jasmine Pace's Facebook account published a photo. The image showed her standing in front of a mirror, dressed in an outfit that her mother, Cassie, would later describe as completely unlike her. The caption was brief. No emojis, no location, no context. It was the first sign that something was wrong, not just because of the photo's content, but because Jasmine hadn't responded to calls or texts for nearly 3 days. Jasmine was 22 years old, a senior student at the University of Tennessee at Chattanooga, majoring in performing arts. According to friends and professors, she was private, introspective, and known for her commitment to her coursework. Her social media activity was sparse and deliberate, typically photos of hiking trails, poetry snippets, and music events. Never anything suggestive, never anything without purpose. The moment that post went live, her mother called her phone. No answer. She texted. No reply. She tried again. Still nothing. By midnight, Cassie drove to Jasmine's apartment. Lights off, car missing. She knocked. No response. The next morning, she filed a missing persons report with the Chattanooga Police Department. She brought screenshots of the Facebook post, detailed Jasmine's last known movements, and emphasized something that would later become crucial. That photo wasn't Jasmine, and I don't believe she posted it. The investigation opened as a voluntary disappearance. Jasmine was an adult. No signs of forced entry, no confirmed threats. Officers issued a BOLO, be on the lookout, for Jasmine's vehicle, a gray 2020 Kia Forte with Tennessee plates. No hits came back in the initial 24 hours. However, several red flags emerged during the first police interview with the Pace family. Jasmine had been in a relationship with another student, 22-year-old Jason Chen, for roughly a year. According to family members, the relationship had turned increasingly private in recent months. Friends said Jasmine had stopped showing up to group events. She'd become anxious, withdrawn, and was always checking her phone. Most notably, the last text Jasmine sent was a location pin via Apple Maps. It was timestamped November 22nd at 9:03 p.m. The address? 1530 Chestnut Street, Jason Chen's apartment. She never sent another message after that. On November 27th, 2 days after the Facebook post, police tracked Jasmine's Kia Forte to a parking lot near Jason Chen's building. The car was locked. Inside, visible through the window, were her student ID, a half-full water bottle, and a canvas tote bag. No sign of Jasmine. Investigators requested surveillance footage from surrounding buildings. One nearby business, a restaurant with a back alley camera, captured Jasmine's vehicle entering the lot on November 22nd at approximately 9:13 p.m. There was no footage of her exiting the vehicle. No one matched her description on the time-stamped frames. The angle did, however, show a figure entering the building shortly after the car pulled in. Not Jasmine, but a male wearing a black hoodie, entering through a side door and glancing over his shoulder. Detectives from the Chattanooga Police Department escalated the case to potential foul play. Crime scene techs were dispatched to Jasmine's apartment and vehicle. No signs of struggle, no blood, no forced entry. But something didn't sit right. Her toothbrush and toiletries were still neatly arranged in her bathroom. Her cat hadn't been fed for 2 days. And most crucially, her phone had last pinged at Jason Chen's apartment the same night she disappeared. After that, it went dark. SIM card inactive. No outgoing signals. When officers knocked on Chen's door, there was no answer. The next step followed procedure. On November 28th, detectives applied for a search warrant for Jason Chen's apartment, citing probable cause based on the last known location data, witness statements from Jasmine's family, and the uncharacteristic Facebook post. The warrant was approved. When officers entered the unit, there was no one inside. But what they found changed the tone of the case completely. On the living room floor, investigators noticed uneven blotches in the hardwood finish. Using Blue Star forensic reagent, technicians identified multiple latent blood stains near the baseboards and extending toward the hallway. In the bathroom, the bathtub appeared to have been scrubbed with a bleach-like substance. Drain residue was collected. A partial print, possibly from a bare foot, was recovered near the tub. A kitchen drawer was partially open. Inside, a serrated kitchen knife with a broken tip. Forensics would later match this blade to a metallic fragment recovered from the eventual autopsy. But at this point, there was still no body. Investigators obtained phone records for Jason Chen. GPS data showed his phone had moved from Chattanooga to Nolensville, Tennessee, nearly 120 miles west, on November 23rd. He'd been there since. Police believed he was staying with his parents. On November 29th, officers from the local sheriff's department in Nolensville were dispatched to the residence. Jason was taken into custody without incident. In his pocket, officers discovered a small plastic bag containing a SIM card later confirmed to be Jasmine Pace's. He did not ask why he was being arrested. He did not request an attorney. He did not say anything at all. Between November 22nd and 25, 2022, no one in Jasmine Pace's circle had direct contact with her. No phone calls, no text replies, no social media activity, aside from the post that triggered alarm. During initial canvassing, investigators interviewed residents at the Tremont Apartments where Jasmine lived alone. Neighbors hadn't heard anything unusual. Her car hadn't returned to the complex. One tenant, who lived directly below her unit, stated that Jasmine typically played soft music in the evenings, but hadn't heard anything since Tuesday night. Inside her apartment, officers found a scene that did not suggest voluntary departure. There was no sign of packing. Her bed was made, laptop still on the desk with several files open related to her final semester projects. Her refrigerator contained fresh groceries. The cat's food bowl was empty. Litter box untouched. She'd missed feeding the animal for more than a day, behavior family described as completely out of character. Crime scene technicians collected minor trace evidence from the unit, fingerprints, hair, minor fabric fibers, but nothing indicated a struggle. Her wallet, college ID, and car keys were not located, but her makeup kit and phone charger remained on the nightstand. The location data from her iPhone showed the last connection with a cell tower near Chestnut Street, consistent with the apartment registered under Jason Chen's name. Detectives shifted their attention to Jasmine's digital life. Subpoenas were issued for her iCloud, phone carrier logs, and social media platforms. Metadata showed her phone had been active on November 22nd until 10:12 p.m. The last outgoing activity was a location pin sent via Apple iMessage, placing her near the 1500 block of Chestnut Street. At 10:13 p.m., her device disconnected and was either turned off or disabled. Banking activity revealed no purchases after November 22nd. Her debit card had not been used, no ATM withdrawals. Investigators checked traffic cameras at key intersections near Chestnut Street. None captured her image. However, one private business camera showed her Kia Forte arriving at 9:13 p.m. on November 22nd, confirming digital records. Interviews with Jasmine's close contacts built a profile. She had been dating Jason Chen for nearly a year. Friends described him as quiet, protective, and slightly possessive. Several noted that Jasmine had become less available in recent months, often canceling plans last minute or ignoring group texts. A former roommate stated that Jasmine had mentioned feeling controlled, but hadn't elaborated. Her therapist, contacted under emergency subpoena, shared that Jasmine had recently expressed concern about setting boundaries in her relationship. Jason Chen's name was not initially released to the public. Investigators did not declare him a suspect at this stage, but noted that he was the last known person Jasmine had tried to contact, based on the location data and text messages. When interviewed at his parents' home in Nolensville, Jason confirmed Jasmine had visited his apartment on the evening of November 22nd but claimed she left before midnight. He stated he had gone to sleep alone and awoke the next morning to a text from Jasmine saying she had made it home safely. That text, however, could not be recovered from Jasmine's device. Officers noted inconsistencies in his story. He described events in general terms, failed to provide a specific time Jasmine left, and showed no concern regarding her disappearance. He declined to provide his phone password and requested legal counsel shortly after the initial conversation. Meanwhile, forensic analysts continued examining his Chattanooga apartment. Additional blood was found beneath the laminate flooring. A luminal sweep revealed directional blood spatter leading from the living room to the bathroom. A damaged towel with visible red staining had been stuffed behind the washer unit. Lab results would later confirm the presence of Jasmine Pace's DNA. Investigators also collected digital data from the Wi-Fi router in the apartment. The router log showed Jasmine's phone had connected automatically to the network at 9:15 p.m. on November 22nd and disconnected permanently at 10:12 p.m., the same minute the phone went offline. From a prosecutorial standpoint, this was critical. It helped establish a timeline that placed Jasmine inside the apartment and indicated she never left alive. Back at Jasmine's apartment, her mother had remained present during several walkthroughs. She provided detectives with a handwritten journal Jasmine kept. One entry, dated a week before her disappearance, included the line, "I need to stop letting him rewrite the rules when I say no." This was entered into evidence as a potential indicator of coercive behavior. By the fifth day of the investigation, the case was no longer being treated as a missing person. It was now categorized under probable homicide, but without a body, detectives knew prosecution would be difficult. Forensic strength could imply death, but it could not prove it. A multi-jurisdictional search was authorized across wooded areas surrounding the city. Search and rescue teams deployed cadaver dogs along routes between Chattanooga and Nolensville. Drones scanned thermal anomalies along the riverbank. Still, no sign of Jasmine. Investigators returned to Jason Chen's digital footprint. Search history from his home IP address included queries such as, "How long does blood last on hardwood? Can you clean DNA with bleach? How to disable phone tracking? How long before a body smells?" None of these were searches made on a school laptop. They were conducted from a personal MacBook located inside his apartment. The same MacBook had a desktop folder labeled Utilities, which included multiple deletion logs. Analysts were able to recover some files, one of which contained a screenshot of Jasmine's Facebook login panel. On December 1st, 2022, a break occurred. A geolocation ping from a traffic camera 2 hours outside Chattanooga recorded a vehicle matching Jason's Kia driving on a secluded stretch of road near the Tennessee River. Investigators requested access to security footage from a nearby boat dock camera. At 1:43 a.m. on November 23rd, the footage showed a man loading a large suitcase into the trunk of his car. The suitcase was dark gray with a missing zipper tab. On November 29th, 2022 at 8:41 a.m., detectives from the Chattanooga Police Department executed a search warrant on Unit 210 Chestnut Street Apartments. The unit belonged to 22-year-old Jason Chen. It was the last known location where Jasmine Pace's phone had connected to Wi-Fi and her vehicle had been found parked outside the building 5 days earlier. Officers entered with body-worn cameras active. The unit was unoccupied. Initial sweep found the apartment unusually clean. Surfaces in the kitchen and bathroom had been wiped down. The trash can was empty. Bleach odor was detectable near the bathroom. Several lights had been left on. No signs of forced entry or burglary were observed. Detectives photographed the apartment thoroughly before forensic specialists arrived. Luminol was applied to the flooring, bathroom tile, and drains. Blood traces were immediately visible under luminol on the living room floor, forming irregular patterns inconsistent with minor injury. Analysts recorded pooled stains near the couch, drag marks toward the hallway, and directional splatter near the baseboard under the entertainment stand. Blood had been cleaned but not completely removed. DNA swabs were taken from the luminol reactive areas. In the bathroom, the tub's drain was partially clogged. Residue was collected. A piece of broken fingernail, later matched through comparison with autopsy findings, was recovered from the tub floor. Small tissue fragments were collected from the side of the tub and drain cap. These samples were placed under priority processing for DNA. The toilet bowl contained diluted traces of red coloration at the waterline. A bleach container was located under the sink, half empty, bearing fingerprints later identified as matching Jason Chen. Investigators noted 2 torn towels in the hamper. One was stained with a brownish-red discoloration. The other had holes consistent with tearing under physical stress. Both were sealed for evidence. A kitchen drawer near the stove held an incomplete set of kitchen knives. One serrated knife, 8 inches long, had a broken tip. The blade was consistent in style and manufacturer with other knives from the same set. A metallic fragment recovered from a later autopsy was later confirmed to match this knife via metallurgy analysis. The Wi-Fi router log corroborated timeline data. Jasmine's iPhone connected to the router at 9:15 p.m. on November 22nd. It remained connected for 57 minutes before abruptly disconnecting at 10:12 p.m., identical to the timestamp when her phone lost cellular service. According to Apple network protocols, this type of disconnection typically occurs when the device is powered off or reset at the hardware level. Search of Chen's laptop, located in a backpack near the bed, revealed deleted files including web searches related to DNA removal, body decomposition, and digital erasure. Metadata timestamps confirmed these searches occurred between 12:15 a.m. and 2 a.m. on November 23rd. Investigators also located a receipt from a local hardware store dated the morning of November 23rd. The purchase included a luggage strap, heavy-duty trash bags, and latex gloves. The apartment building had a back staircase with no surveillance camera coverage. A side alley led directly to the parking lot where Jasmine's vehicle was found. No blood was visible along this route, but luminol was applied to exterior concrete. Several faint streaks were found near the dumpster enclosure, though the volume was too low to confirm source. Investigators photographed and logged the location regardless. Property management provided Jason Chen's lease. He had moved in during July 2022. Maintenance staff reported no service calls or complaints regarding noise or disturbance around the time of the incident. Forensic teams completed collection within 16 hours. A sealed evidence inventory included 37 items: blood samples, digital devices, fiber swabs, towel fragments, knife pieces, drain material, and a MacBook Air. Data drives were mirrored and secured per department protocol. On November 30th, Jasmine's phone was confirmed inactive with no SIM activity, no location pings, and no battery signal for 7 consecutive days. Her Apple ID was logged into from a device associated with Jason Chen's router IP at 2:47 a.m. on November 23rd, indicating that someone accessed her account hours after she was last seen. That same login session posted the now infamous Facebook image from Jasmine's account. Metadata from the post was traced to Chen's IP address. The image itself had been taken 2 weeks earlier, but it was edited on November 23rd, just before uploading. Authorities categorized this as post-mortem digital manipulation, likely intended to suggest Jasmine was still active, possibly to delay reporting or obscure the timeline. With mounting physical and digital evidence, the case shifted classification again, from missing person to confirmed homicide with digital tampering. A request for a full forensic autopsy protocol was placed on standby. At this stage, however, the body had not yet been found. The following day, a break would come from outside the apartment. On December 1st, 2022, less than 24 hours after forensic teams finished cataloging evidence from apartment 210, the Tennessee Bureau of Investigation released preliminary lab results. Multiple blood samples collected from the living room floor, bathtub, and towels tested positive for Jasmine Pace's DNA. The samples included both high-concentration pools and diluted stains with chemical residue. Toxicology identified the presence of sodium hypochlorite, a primary agent in household bleach, in multiple locations. The chemical was concentrated in grout lines along the bathroom tile, the bathtub drain, and across the laminate floor seams. The pattern suggested intentional scrubbing with an industrial-strength agent, likely with the goal of destroying trace evidence. Despite the cleaning attempt, blood plasma proteins remained intact enough for identification. Analysts also noted that one of the towels recovered in the laundry hamper contained hair fragments consistent with Jasmine's DNA profile. Mitochondrial DNA confirmed the match. Blood enzyme degradation rate suggested the event had occurred at least 5 days prior, aligning with the night of November 22nd. At 9:13 a.m., Chattanooga detectives conducted a follow-up interview with staff at a local hardware store. Surveillance video from November 23rd captured a man matching the physical description of Jason Chen purchasing heavy-duty trash bags, a luggage strap, industrial-grade gloves, and a gallon of concentrated bleach. The transaction was completed using a debit card registered in Chen's name. Time of purchase, 10:47 a.m. The same morning, data from a local toll reader registered his vehicle traveling northbound towards Suck Creek Road, a rural stretch known for its unmonitored terrain and direct access to the Tennessee River. Weather records confirmed low visibility due to fog on the morning of November 23rd. No security cameras were located along the wooded routes in that area. The vehicle made no additional toll entries for the next 36 hours. This suggested it remained parked or off-grid following the rural detour. Investigators used this information to establish a target radius for physical search. At 6:52 p.m., the Chattanooga Police Department officially reclassified the case from probable homicide to active homicide with circumstantial concealment. Specialized search and recovery teams were dispatched with K-9 cadaver units, drone-mounted infrared scanners, and sonar equipment. The operation focused on a 10-mile radius surrounding the last known cell, pinged from Chen's phone on the early morning of November 23rd. During this time, investigators received a report from the Nolensville Police Department. Jason Chen had returned to his parents' house the morning after the incident. A neighbor surveillance camera recorded his arrival at 5:34 a.m. He was seen unloading a duffel bag and a dark-colored suitcase from the trunk of his car. 3 hours later, the same camera captured him, returning to the vehicle without the luggage. A warrant was issued for the property surrounding Suck Creek Road based on the collected digital trail, toll records, and travel logs. On December 2nd, just after 10 a.m., search crews located drag marks on a slope 200 feet from the riverbank. Further inspection revealed disturbance in the soil and flattened vegetation consistent with recent foot traffic. Near the base of a concealed path, searchers discovered a hard-shell suitcase partially submerged under brush. It was sealed with 2 luggage straps and emitted a strong odor. The suitcase was transported unopened to the county medical examiner's office under chain of custody protocol. Inside, officials discovered the remains of a young female. The body was zip-tied at the wrists and ankles, positioned in a fetal layout. Black trash bags lined the interior. Multiple layers of fabric had been stuffed around the body. One towel matched the same style and make as those recovered from apartment 210. An autopsy was initiated the same day. Examiners confirmed the victim was Jasmine Pace through dental records and a tattoo located on her right shoulder blade. Cause of death: multiple sharp force injuries to the torso and neck. There were 60 wounds in total. Blunt trauma was also evident across the nasal and orbital bones, likely inflicted prior to death. No defensive wounds were noted. Fragments of metal consistent with a broken knife tip were embedded near the 5th rib. Metallurgical testing later confirmed this to be identical to the blade recovered from the kitchen of apartment 210. Toxicology reported no sedatives or alcohol in her system. Time of death was estimated between 9:30 p.m. and 10:15 p.m. on November 22nd, based on internal temperature loss and decomposition stage. By December 3rd, the combined forensic evidence, DNA, digital location tracking, chemical residue, and body condition established a cohesive crime scene timeline. Every known physical and digital trace pointed back to apartment 210 as the site of the homicide and to Suck Creek Road as the disposal location. Prosecutors began assembling a timeline summary supported by surveillance footage, phone metadata, blood analysis, autopsy results, and retail transaction history. The narrative was no longer speculative. It was now prosecutable. On December 2nd, 2022, at 10:18 a.m., a search team operating west of Suck Creek Road located a sealed suitcase approximately 15 feet off a narrow trail. The discovery was made by a cadaver K9 that showed alert behavior near a dense patch of brush. The suitcase was dark gray, hard shell, approximately 28 inches in height, with exterior abrasion consistent with being dragged across uneven terrain. The exterior was wrapped with 2 orange luggage straps, one fastened across the width and one along the vertical axis. The zipper was broken, secured with a secondary nylon cord looped through the pull tabs. The suitcase emitted a strong decompositional odor, and insects were observed exiting from the seam. Per protocol, the suitcase was not opened at the scene. It was documented, photographed in place, then sealed in a biohazard container and transported under full chain of custody to the Hamilton County Medical Examiner's office. Inside the morgue containment chamber, the suitcase was opened under controlled ventilation and video documentation. The body of an adult female was recovered. The remains were in a flexed fetal position, restrained at the wrists and ankles using plastic zip ties. The interior was lined with 2 contractor-grade trash bags loosely knotted. Additional fabric was used as padding, including a towel later identified as matching linens found in apartment 210. Identification was confirmed via dental records and visual verification of a tattoo on the right shoulder blade. The deceased was Jasmine Pace. The Hamilton County pathologist conducted the full forensic autopsy beginning December 3rd at 8 a.m. The procedure lasted approximately 4 hours. Primary cause of death: multiple sharp force injuries. A total of 60 stab wounds were recorded, predominantly to the torso and neck. Depth and angle indicated a serrated weapon, consistent with the damaged kitchen knife found at the suspect's apartment. Secondary trauma was also noted. Blunt force injuries were present across facial bones, consistent with an impact from a hard object or wall surface. Orbital fractures suggested the blunt trauma occurred perimortem. No defensive wounds were located on forearms or hands. Pathologists concluded the victim may have been physically restrained at the time of attack. Internal organ lacerations and blood loss confirmed death occurred rapidly following the attack. No sedatives or intoxicants were found in the bloodstream. Gastric contents indicated the victim had consumed a small meal approximately 2 to 3 hours prior to death. Time of death was estimated between 9:30 p.m. and 10:15 p.m. on November 22nd. The zip ties used on Jasmine's wrists and ankles were consistent in material and tensile strength, with those purchased at a hardware store near the suspect's apartment. Serial codes on the inside of the plastic bands matched a batch sold on November 22nd. Surveillance video had previously captured the suspect purchasing the same product, along with bleach, trash bags, and gloves. Forensic analysts recovered partial latent fingerprints from the inside lining of the suitcase. Ridge detail was limited due to moisture exposure, but partials matched those collected from the suspect's apartment surfaces. A hair sample found on the victim's shoulder was determined to be a DNA match to the suspect through mitochondrial sequencing. The suitcase itself, identified as a Samsonite model, had no sales record under the suspect's name. However, a photo recovered from his iCloud backup, dated August 2022, showed the same suitcase in the trunk of his vehicle. This photo, combined with a time-stamped location match, placed both the suitcase and the suspect in the same area 3 months prior. On December 6, 2022, Hamilton County District Attorney's Office filed formal charges against Jason Chen. The indictment included first-degree murder, abuse of a corpse, and tampering with evidence. The grand jury convened 2 days later and returned a true bill based on the complete forensic report, autopsy documentation, and digital trail assembled by investigators. Jason Chen was transferred from Nolensville to the Hamilton County Jail under high-security transport. He declined to speak with investigators. At arraignment, he entered a plea of not guilty through public defender counsel. Bail was denied due to the severity of the charges and the weight of the evidence. The court scheduled the trial for June 2023. Prosecutors built their case using the forensic chain of evidence established during the 5-week investigation. Lead prosecutor presented a 167-page trial packet outlining Jasmine Pace's phone connection timeline to Chen's apartment Wi-Fi, the disconnect time, corresponding with her time of death, bleach-soaked blood evidence in Chen's apartment with confirmed DNA match, knife fragment from the autopsy matched to broken kitchen knife in his drawer, trash bags, towels, zip ties, and suitcase linked to the hardware store purchase and the crime scene, photos from Chen's iCloud backup showing prior ownership of the suitcase, search history involving body decomposition and DNA cleanup. The prosecution also introduced the Facebook post made from Jasmine's account, accessed via Chen's IP address after her phone had gone dark, arguing it was a deliberate attempt to delay discovery of the crime. Each piece of evidence was validated through either chain of custody logs, forensic analyst testimony, or surveillance footage. The trial began on June 12, 2023, with jury selection completed in 2 days. 12 jurors and 2 alternates were sworn in. The trial was not televised, but drew national media attention due to the brutality of the crime and the timeline of digital manipulation. The prosecution's opening statement outlined the victim's last known movements and the timeline of events from November 22nd to December 2nd. Jasmine's parents were present in the courtroom each day. Witnesses called in the first phase included forensic crime scene analysts from Chattanooga PD who testified to the luminol evidence and DNA collection from apartment 210, the pathologist who conducted the autopsy, detailing the cause and manner of death, a digital forensic expert who established the metadata trail from Jasmine's phone and Jason Chen's internet search activity, the hardware store manager who verified the defendant's purchase via video and receipt, the canine handler and lead detective who discovered the suitcase and coordinated recovery of the remains. Each testified under oath and presented physical and digital records corroborating their statements. The defense team did not dispute the physical evidence but introduced an alternate theory during their presentation. They suggested the crime was not premeditated but occurred during a heated argument, asserting the death was an act of impulsive violence rather than calculated murder. They argued that Jason Chen panicked after the incident, attempted to cover it up, and failed to act rationally in the aftermath. No alternate suspect was presented. Jason Chen did not take the stand. No character witnesses were introduced by the defense. Closing arguments occurred on June 20th. The prosecution emphasized intent, preparation, and concealment. They presented a full sequence of events, from Jasmine's arrival to the apartment, the cleaning and disposal efforts, and the remote Facebook post, all used to assert a narrative of intentional homicide, followed by calculated digital deception. The defense reiterated that panic, not premeditation, was the driving factor, attempting to reduce the charge from first-degree to voluntary manslaughter or second-degree murder. They offered no new evidence and made no motion for mistrial. The jury deliberated for 46 minutes. Jason Chen was found guilty on all charges. First-degree murder, abuse of a corpse. Tampering with evidence sentencing occurred immediately after. The court imposed a sentence of life imprisonment without the possibility of parole. Chen showed no visible reaction. He declined to make a statement. In the aftermath of sentencing, Jasmine's family provided a written statement, read in court by a victim advocate. The statement acknowledged the finality of justice and emphasized the importance of early intervention in toxic relationships. No emotional display was made toward the defendant. Following trial, the district attorney's office issued a public summary highlighting the role of digital forensic evidence, stating it had proven indispensable in reconstructing the timeline and confirming the victim's last location and digital silence. On June 21, 2023, Jason Chen was processed into the custody of the Tennessee Department of Correction following his conviction for first-degree murder, tampering with evidence, and abuse of a corpse. He was transported from the Hamilton County Jail to the Bledsoe County Correctional Complex, a maximum security facility in Pikeville. Intake procedures were completed within 4 hours. Fingerprints, medical screening, psychological intake assessment, and classification review placed him under administrative segregation for the first 30 days. Under Tennessee sentencing law, first-degree murder carries a mandatory life sentence. Chen was not eligible for parole, and no appeals were filed within the 30-day post-trial window. According to court records, his legal counsel confirmed that no post-conviction relief was being pursued at the request of the defendant. No statement of remorse or mitigation was submitted to the court following sentencing. Within the facility, Chen was assigned to Cell Block D, designated for high-risk, long-term offenders. He was listed as non-compliant with mental health programming and declined voluntary participation in rehabilitative services. His commissary activity was minimal. Surveillance records indicated little interaction with other inmates. No disciplinary incidents were reported during his first 90 days. Meanwhile, the Pace family's involvement with the justice system did not end at sentencing. On August 2, 2023, Jasmine's parents submitted formal victim impact documentation to the Tennessee Board of Victim Services. They requested notification of any future motions, appeals, or custody transfers involving Jason Chen. The Victim Notification Program confirmed their enrollment, ensuring that no changes to his incarceration status could occur without written notice. In a separate development, the University of Tennessee at Chattanooga held a private memorial in Jasmine's honor in September 2023. Faculty from the College of Arts and Sciences presented a scholarship endowment bearing her name, funded by community donations. The Jasmine Pace Memorial Scholarship was designated for students in the performing arts with demonstrated need and academic discipline. The fund's stated purpose was to preserve the legacy of a student whose voice was silenced. In media circles, the case generated significant coverage. National true crime publications and legal analysts focused on the role of digital forensic evidence in modern homicide investigations. A special feature by Forensic Files Today highlighted the recovery of Wi-Fi router logs, metadata timestamps, and deleted search history as crucial to establishing the time and method of the crime. Experts noted that without these digital records, the body might have remained undiscovered. Public discussion also shifted toward the criminal justice process for non-pleading defendants in high-profile cases. Jason Chen's silence, both during interrogation and throughout trial, was the subject of professional analysis, particularly by forensic psychologists who pointed to potential indicators of psychopathy or dissociative behavior, though no official diagnosis was ever disclosed by the Department of Correction. One legal complication arose 3 months after sentencing, when a procedural request was filed by a legal advocacy nonprofit, questioning whether Jason Chen had received adequate psychological evaluation before waiving his right to testify. The court reviewed existing records, which included 2 mental health assessments conducted during pretrial confinement. Both evaluations found him competent to stand trial and aware of his rights. The motion was denied without hearing. In late 2023, public interest in the case declined as media attention turned elsewhere. However, the judicial file remains active in the Tennessee Integrated Court System as a closed, non-appealed conviction under case numbered 22, CR 04763. All motions, transcripts, and evidence lists are permanently archived. From a legislative standpoint, the case sparked discussion about increasing public access to post-trial forensic data and expanding training for local law enforcement in digital evidence preservation. The Tennessee Bureau of Investigation issued an internal policy update in December 2023, requiring more consistent logging of router-level digital trace data in missing persons cases. In January 2024, a training workshop hosted in Chattanooga by the National Criminal Justice Training Center featured the Jasmine Pace case as a case study. Presenters emphasized three key takeaways. Digital silence is a red flag in adult missing cases. Wi-Fi and SIM card data can serve as timeline anchors. Attempts to digitally mimic a victim's activity post-mortem may indicate calculated concealment. Despite the outcome, the Pace family declined most media appearances. When approached for interview requests by national outlets, they issued a unified response. Our daughter's life deserves more reflection than her death. Let the legal record stand. Jason Chen remains incarcerated at the time of this writing. No disciplinary infractions have been recorded. He is not eligible for parole, sentence review, or clemency. The state of Tennessee closed its investigation with no further suspects. The murder of Jasmine Pace was not spontaneous. It was not a random act of violence. It was the culmination of a pattern, a progression of psychological control, isolation, and manipulation that unfolded quietly in the months leading up to her death. Long before the physical crime occurred, the groundwork had already been laid in silence. According to records obtained during the investigation, Jasmine's personal journal entries described subtle behavioral shifts in her relationship with Jason Chen. She had written about feeling increasingly anxious, watched, and cut off from others. Friends confirmed that she had started canceling plans without explanation and rarely responded in group chats. Multiple individuals close to her recalled conversations where Jasmine questioned her own memory or decisions, signs consistent with gaslighting. Clinical psychologist Dr. Erica Lang, a forensic consultant specializing in intimate partner violence, reviewed publicly available materials related to the case. In her assessment, she noted, "This was a classic coercive dynamic. The control didn't begin with violence, it began with psychological isolation. The subject, Chen, created an environment where the victim no longer trusted her own perceptions. That's not affection, that's control." Gaslighting is a manipulation tactic in which a perpetrator causes the victim to doubt their reality, often by denying things they said or did, dismissing the victim's concerns, or rewriting past events. Over time, this erosion of confidence leads to dependency, and in many cases, submission. Jasmine's decision to remain in the relationship, despite discomfort she had confided to others, was not uncommon in coercive partnerships. Victims of psychological abuse frequently delay exiting the relationship due to fear of escalation, emotional dependency, or a sense of responsibility to fix the other person. In her case, she had recently begun to reassert boundaries. This is evident in one of her final entries. "He doesn't listen when I say I need space. He says it's my anxiety, but I'm not sure anymore if that's true, or just what he wants me to believe." The manipulation extended into the digital realm. After Jasmine's death, her social media account was accessed, and a photo was posted that was inconsistent with her established online behavior. The intention behind this act, prosecutors argued, was not only to delay discovery, but to mislead those who knew her, to fabricate a narrative that she had left on her own terms, that everything was fine. In effect, even after her death, the control continued. Digital forensics expert Carl Preston, who testified in the trial, reflected on this. When perpetrators take over the digital identity of their victims, it's not just to cover their tracks, it's also a final act of dominance. They rewrite the story. This insight reflects a broader trend in modern intimate partner homicides. In an age where identity is partially constructed through digital footprints, controlling someone's access, passwords, and online presence becomes another tool in the arsenal of manipulation. The illusion of normalcy can now be manufactured with a single click. The Jasmine Pace case serves as a critical study in the escalation from psychological control to fatal violence. While the court focused on physical evidence, blood patterns, GPS logs, search history, the prelude to the crime was written in behavioral patterns invisible to those outside the relationship. These patterns are common across cases of domestic homicide, but often go unrecognized until it is too late. In 2024, the National Coalition Against Domestic Violence included Jasmine's case in its annual policy report, citing it as a clear example of high-control, high-risk intimate partner violence masked as a functioning relationship. The report advocated for increased education on non-physical forms of abuse, especially within college-age populations. Preventive strategies now include training campus counselors and RAs to recognize red flags in student relationships. Digital safety programs have begun encouraging young adults to use two-factor authentication, notify trusted contacts of unplanned location changes, and recognize signs of account hijacking. Jasmine's story ends in tragedy, but her life continues to shape how future cases are handled. Her name is attached to digital evidence training programs, scholarship funds, and awareness initiatives. But perhaps the most important legacy is this: a better understanding that psychological abuse can be as dangerous as physical harm, because it makes the victim question when and if they are ever in danger at all. No one heard her leave. And now, no one forgets what silence can cost. Thank you for watching our video. Please subscribe, follow us, and leave a comment. It truly helps us keep bringing you gripping and thought-provoking true crime stories.